the original beat 'em up, Amiga style. It's Double Dragon on the Amigos. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about Double Dragon.
Oh, man, I can't wait for this one, Bode.
You know, Double Dragon famously stars two twin brothers, Billy and Jimmy Lee. Right?
Yep, correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had the right game.
Unless you're playing on the Nintendo where it's, I think it's Jimmy and
Bimmy. Or, yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you think that, you've got a brother? Do you think your relationship with the Brent would have been any different if you guys were twins?
Well, I would have jumped off a cliff. I can tell you that right now as I came of age. If I looked like the Brent, I could handle that. If he looked like me, he should be so lucky. But no, I was thinking, it's funny you should mention that because I was always, this is a brother combo. And you're going out to fight this huge gang of thugs, right? That's the game. And I took martial arts, so as you know, I'm a decorated martial artist, and I studied martial arts to this day. Study it. I don't actually practice it. Brent, on the other hand, is sort of he's not really what I would call the physical type. You know what I mean? So if we had a Double Dragon game made after me and Brent, it would be me in my gi, my brown belt, maybe a headband like Daniel LaRussa, and Brent would just come out with a gun. That would be the game because Brent's or maybe just hit people with a car because Brent's always told me, he's like, yeah, if I ever had to fight anybody or hurt, and I believe it, he would just run them over with a car or shoot them. There wouldn't be knives or throwing stars or that crap. He's not that kind of guy. So Double Dragon would have to be some kind of combination, beat him up, and like Racer or something.
Yeah. Well, it could be sort of like ER Kung Fu meets Death Race 3000.
Yeah. Or maybe Double Dragon meets Commando or something like that. And Brent would be Commando. It's not like I'm a ninja. It's funny when I had a dream a couple weeks ago. I had a buddy over for a sleepover when I was in high school. Okay, and I had this dream that I was in an alley and I got sort of beat up by some thugs, right? Very similar to Double Dragon. And I never forgot this dream because it made me wake up to it with a start. You know what I mean? Like you're like, ugh, like on the movies. Like I don't think any other dream's ever done that to me. So get this, Boat. A couple weeks ago, I had a dream where I was in an alley and a bunch of thugs came around. And this time I was like, well, I remember thinking I got to get one good shot in. So I went over to this thug and I pounded him in the face. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I got him good. And then these thugs beat me mercilessly. And it wasn't like a fun beating, like where you just sort of wake up. I was there as they dislocated my jaw and broke my face and put the boots to me. And I woke up with a start again. So I don't know what it is about getting beat up in an alley by a big group of dudes. I don't know what that means. I'm sure there's somebody that knows. So this game actually hits a little bit close to home for me, Bode. Have you ever been in an alley and been threatened or worried that you're going to take a beating?
When I lived in D.C., well, I actually lived in Alexandria, right outside D.C.
Well, I'm not surprised D.C.'s involved in this story.
My apartment was in an alley. Like, I had to go into an alley.
You were one of the gang members.
And I used to track people down. It was great.
That's the story.
What if you ran into me in a dark alley?
I hit a dude's girlfriend in the gut. That's the story. What a jerk you are,
I gave him the old hello.
I'd be afraid the girlfriend might turn around and beat my brains out. That'd be my problem.
But I was approaching my apartment, there was this guy, and he started doing these weird martial arts movements towards me. He's like, oh, like this.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is weird. And but it turns out it was just some homeless guy. So and he was actually cool. I talked to him for like half an hour. So, but yeah, that was the closest I've ever been to being accosted in an alley.
God, Bones. I don't know what to say about you. You've lived in some places that probably, dark alleys are they? Is that something you see a lot in South Korea or Japan or anything?
Oh,
I mean, because
sure.
I've seen videos, they seem like pretty well lit, nice, clean areas without thugs.
Well, you may be surprised to know that real life not often mirrors the television, and there are
Dang.
dark alleys.
Yeah.
But the difference is that in Korea, I could walk down like the darkest alley in the blackest night and never
Yeah.
be afraid. In
Yeah.
America, I'm afraid all the time.
Just buy 30 guns. Everyone else has.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
working out
yeah.
great for us, Boat.
So that's the big difference. When I lived in Alexandria and I would go down the alley to go home, I was often inebriated, and so that helped my courage.
Boy, you're really painting a picture tonight, Boat.
Sorry. Stumble through the alley on my way.
So let
And
me ask you, you haven't been through the dark alleys of West Virginia too often, have you? Because there aren't any alleys hardly.
Yeah, I
unless
was
you
going
live
to
in
say you have
Charleston
to
or
have
Huntington.
alleys first. I always thought it would be cool when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You see movies and stuff of people that live in big cities.
Yeah.
And I used to think the idea of being able to have blocks was cool. It's like, yeah, you just go down a couple blocks. I was like, man,
Yeah.
I want to live somewhere where there's blocks.
Yeah, in West Virginia, gangs of toughs gather at like the cow pasture or around the door at the one beer joint within 15 miles of anything.
Right.
It must be. This is a rough state to be a tough. There's not much going on. Cow tipping, that's about it.
That's why we don't have too many toughs. They all have to migrate to other
That's
states.
true. That works out good for
neighboring
us.
locales. Yeah. All right, Aaron, it's time to talk about Double Dragon.
Oh yeah.
It sounds awful.
Oh man. They really translated that theme over perfectly, using all the power of the Amiga to pull it off, brother. So we're looking at Double Dragon, but before we get to the Amiga version, we're going to talk about the arcade version of Double Dragon, Boat.
Yeah.
Double Dragon from Technos Japan, but Technos, man, they keep popping up in these games that we do.
You're a
and
huge
they're
company.
awesome. They're awesome, awesome designers. This one, the designer of this was Yoshishika Kishimoto. Now, this guy, I've just mentioned him recently. He's like the king dog of Technos, but I couldn't possibly go over everything he's done. But just to name off a few things he did, where the predecessor to this game, Renegade, Super Dodgeball. He did, of course, all the Double Dragons. He did WWF Superstars and WrestleFest, which we just talked about. He's done tons of great stuff over the years. And is a big deal. I mean, obviously, clearly, his pedigree, his track record speaks for itself. This game came out in Japan April 22nd, 1987, and it came out here in America shortly thereafter, and this came out in Europe in June of that year. And I mentioned this was the spiritual successor, quote-unquote, to Renegade. Renegade was a beat-em-up. It was a much simpler beat-em-up. I was not the biggest fan of Renegade back in the day, but I mean, I thought it had good graphics. Did you ever play Renegade, Boat?
I was never a huge fan of Renegade either. I didn't even know about Renegade because in my world, the world of the NES, we only got Target Renegade.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But and of course, people in the UK love Target. If you get anybody started talking about Target Renegade, oh my gosh, it's like their catnip. So anyway, I was never a big fan. But I think it's because I'd already played several of the Double Dragon games before I played Renegade. And so, this is, it's funny. Renegade has an interesting story. It originally was about Japanese school gangs that would beat each other up. And then they reskinned it to look like the Warriors. And when they released it here, which again, it was probably a good idea.
It's funny you should mention that, Boaster, because when they were putting this together, when Kishimoto was putting this together, they were like, yeah, we want something so you can have two players, more money, because Renegade was a pretty successful game in Japan.
Right.
And so he had this idea for another schoolyard-based beat down there. Like, listen, can you put something together that's a little more worldwide, so we could move it out of Japan and have some luck? So he actually changed what it was to become more of what it is. He sort of took out the high school element. And by the way, the high school Renegade, the high school element in that was semi-autobiographical according to Wiki. So I don't know I wonder if he was the guy whooping butt or getting beat.
the designer, he actually got in fights every single day in high school, every single day.
That's
And I guess
tough.
what was spurred, I guess there were some family issues going on, but then one day
Yeah.
a girl dumped him and then he just went bananas.
Oh man, that's the
Yeah.
way it goes.
Yeah.
So what they ended up coming up with was Double Dragon. According to legend, they called it double because there's 2 players, and the dragon is a Bruce Lee tribute. Which, of course, what is it, right? And so that's how they went with it. The game follows, as Boat mentioned earlier, Billy and Jimmy, as they go after a gang of toughs who walk up and punch your girlfriend in the gut, and they basically take her away. When you first saw this in the arcade, I'm dying to hear what you thought about this. I'm assuming you played this in the arcade.
I did, and I mean, to be honest, to this day, it's a very brutal scene. I mean, because it's a massive punch right to the gut, and but it sets the stage for it lights the fire for you to get revenge on this guy.
Yeah,
For a lot in a lot of games, you hear about there's this evil guy and he's done this bad thing, but you never really see it. In this game, you see the deed get done, and you want to get revenge.
Yeah, no kidding. And I will say, unlike Renegade, for example, this game has a plot, and that plot gets picked up by all the other Double Dragons, plus many other beat-em-ups go down this same road, including the one that comes to mind is Final Fight, where they kidnap the daughter of the mayor / girlfriend. Same deal. In this one, of course, your girlfriend, it's Billy's girlfriend. Her name's Marion, and the people that kidnap her are the Black Warriors, and they're led by the mysterious Shadow Boss, Boat. So he's good. You got to admit, that's a cool sounding gang name and a cool gang.
Yeah.
And so it's your job to go through the multiple levels of scrolling streets and beatdown area, including areas much like West Virginia, where you're just sort of out in the pasture. There's a gentle river. So there are plenty of areas where you're out in the sticks. So I guess we still have hope, Boat, to get a beatdown going. So when this was released in the arcades, newsflash, it was kind of popular. In fact, it was one of the most popular games in Japan of the era. I mean, it was hugely popular. It was in Japan. In 1987, it was the most successful table of the month. It went on to be the most successful arcade table game of the year. And it was also, in America, it was the highest grossing video game of 88 and 89. That's amazing.
Huge success.
Yeah, no kidding. In 88, Tato America had sold 10,000 dedicated arcade cabinets. But what was hosing them was a lot of these ended up being counterfeit circuit boards in them. There was some shenanigans. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, everywhere you went for a while, there was a Double Dragon. They're not hard to find. You could find them anywhere. There were, at the time, you could get them pretty cheap. Who knows now? The arcade game was followed up by a couple sequels in the arcade. Double Dragon 2, The Revenge, and Double Dragon 3, The Rosetta Stone. I believe, didn't you own Double Dragon 2 for a while, Boat?
The first arcade game I ever owned that you and the Brent picked up for me, Double Dragon 2.
Yeah, I thought it was. This also had a horrible, horrible TV show. It had a horrible
I wasn't
film.
aware of that.
Yeah, there was an animated TV show that ran for 2 seasons from 93 to 95. There was a god-awful, and by the way, the god-awful cartoon also was the basis for the god-awful Jaguar Double Dragon game. So they actually spun off of the horrible cartoon to an even more horrible game. And also there was a god-awful film. Now, I saw the making of this film, and it was madness. They just took a bunch of people out in the middle of the I think it was like in Thailand or something, just stuck them out in the woods, good luck, suckers. And you can imagine how that went. And of course, Double Dragon got tons and tons of weird console ports and whatnot. So with all that, I mean, I guess I should ask you before we move to the Amiga versus Bo, did you like this in the arcade? Was this a fun one for you?
Well, again, I didn't play this until much after the release date. I did, I would find this game around in a dark, dusty corner of an arcade because it was never new when I played it.
I see. So by this time, you'd see playing Final Fight and stuff.
Yeah. And so this game, I was always intrigued by it because I played a ton of Double Dragon on the Nintendo. And and so this was it's in some ways it's a much different game. And so I would play it, and also it made an appearance in the blockbuster film The Wizard, starring Fred Savage.
Everything was in that movie, wasn't it?
One of the early scenes where his brother, who's like the Rain Man of video games, he puts a quarter into this thing, and it basically explodes from him playing so awesomely. And so I wanted to check it out. But
are you kidding me?
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. Like, the game actually glitches out because he's doing so well. So
I love it.
This is I always thought this game was sort of slow, sort of boring compared to what was available in the arcades at the time in terms of beat 'em ups, because I was playing this game in 92, 93, somewhere around there, and the world had moved on.
Right. Well, I will say, when this came out, it really was a revelation. I mean, it jumped well past Renegade. I can tell you that right now. And so when a game does, I mean, clearly it did monster business. One of the all-time great earning arcade machines in multiple countries. So it's going to get ports to beat the band boat, and ports it did got. So just to name a few of the ports this thing got, you had all the Ataris got it. I'm like, every single Atari pretty much got it. The C64s.
Well,
MSX.
we should mention, and when we say every single Atari, we mean the 2600. And if you have
not
seen the Atari 2600 port of Double Dragon, you need to check it out.
Yeah. I mean, have you played it?
Yes.
It's ambitious, that's for sure.
It's ambitious, and it's somewhat a technical achievement for the 2600.
One thing I like with the 2600, you have to be ambitious to do anything on it.
Yes, absolutely.
You got to be out of your mind. Again, the C64, the MSX, the NES, PC. There's an old booter of this back in the day, the old DOS booter. All the portable systems, the ZX, the Tandy, the DOS, they got all of them got it. Pretty much anything you could think of got a port of this, because it was so huge, and they weren't stupid. They're going to make the big money. So when this, and I should mention that the Amstrad got a port of this, which will play into things later. This was released on the Amiga in '89, published by Arcadia and Melbourne House, depending on where you're at, and developed by Binary Design. Binary Design did Double Dragon 2, Road Wars, Shinobi, Steve Davis Snuka. We gotta try that one, Boat. Because I'm not familiar with Steve Davis. We've seen him on the shows playing. I don't remember his name. Maybe he's got a cool nickname. They don't call him Steve Davis very often. They do have the ability to play two people in this, which that's something. This, if you'll recall, famously on the C64 port of this, the guys have a cut right down the middle of them, and the docs tell you it's like to get two players, we had to basically like leave out this chunk. Remember that? So
it's the old invisible belt. Yeah,
the old invisible belt. That's it. The fellas that worked on this, you may or may not be surprised by this. They didn't do a ton of other Amiga games. Gary Vine was and Peter Gartside and Richard Applin did the coding for this. Gary Vine worked on Double Dragon 2. Gartside didn't do anything else, and Applin did Double Dragon. Now listen to this. Applin's responsible for working on Double Dragon 2 and Final Fight. This guy had a real pedigree.
Wow.
And the Godfather game and something called Line of Fire. The graphics were done by Chris Collins and Hayden Dalton. They both worked on Gauntlet 3 for some reason. And this was no CS joint. Now, word on the street is that this game was and I don't know how this is exactly possible, but I watched both to try to figure it out. But the word on the street is this was an enhanced port of the Amstrad game. I don't know if you looked at the Amstrad version of this.
No, I didn't.
It looks a lot different to me. But that's what everyone says. So you never know. But to me, I'm like, I don't know about that. So what are you doing? This exact same game with a butt. There are several differences, I guess. The main one being you've got one button to work with, Boat, to supply you with all your punches, kicks, and your jump. So the controls are quite a bit different. The speed is not what I would call crisp when this thing hones into view. The guys, everyone in this looks like they got a bad perm. I noticed. I don't know what was going on there. But I mean, a lot of people to me, maybe you've heard different. A lot of people seem real down on this game, and I'll have to say that I played this on stream last week. In fact, this is video. If you're watching, is me playing, and I actually didn't hate this as much as others do. I mean, I guess they expected better, but I mean, it seemed okay. I've played a lot of different versions of Double Dragon over the years, including the DOS booter, and there are many, many worse ports than this. The graphics are okay. They're not the best, and if you compare them to the arcade, I mean, it's not a great comparison, but it's okay. I mean, the arcade is famous for the ability to pick up weapons. So the Amiga's got that, so you've got that aspect of it in there. The arcade was famous for having these big kind of like semi-bosses and then like a major boss, and those guys are in here for the most part. But it does look, it's less arcadey and more 8-bitty than it probably should be. I guess that is the big problem. It looks like something you'd see on like an Amstrad or an NES, for example. Just the way the all the bricks and all the ground look, they're not very fancy. It doesn't look like they really went full bore on the game. What did you think of it when you saw it? I mean, were you disappointed when you saw the graphics in it?
I sort of chuckled when I first saw the graphics in this because they were just like the character is drawn I would call it not well. Like, it's not that he's poorly animated. It's not that, like, it's just something about his head. It is very
weird. Yeah.
It's very 8-bit, like you said. It's very 8-bit look because the head is basically 3 colors. You've got flesh, you got a solid mound of hair on this guy, and then his eyes and his mouth are just black slits.
You remember John Oates from Hall & Oates? It's like an Oates, and it's like if you took his head and you erased the whole face, everything, and you literally took a pencil and just wrote in the eyes and then made a smile. That's what you got here. It's like kicking butt with John Oates. Or, I'm sorry, Daryl Hall.
Which is which is the name of my Double Dragon ROM hack.
The Hall & Oates version? I'd buy that in a heartbeat.
Kicking butt with John Oates.
I'm sorry, please continue, Bud. I apologize.
So, here's the thing. I am 100% with you on this. 100%.
I can't believe
this game. You said it chugs. I don't think it chugs. I think it moves along pretty well. In fact, I think it moves a little bit faster than the arcade version. I think the graphics are fine. I think they're definitely serviceable. Definitely. I am a big fan of all the different weapon selections. They're all present. The whip is there. The knife. I don't think the dynamite is in this game. I don't remember seeing the dynamite, but the barrels are in there. The oil barrels are always a fun one to throw around. I thought that all of the stages, I think, are there. I think they're all represented. The bosses, like you said. There's a lot that can be said in the positive. However, I don't know that the positives outweigh the negatives in this game. And the first negative is that if you go back to first principles of beat 'em ups, your job as dude is to beat up an endless variety of bad guys, just an endless variety. And the fun of the game, because you're essentially doing the same thing over and over again, is you want to be killing guys in various ways, and you want the guys to look different. Okay. Now, can you kill guys in various ways? Yeah, you can kill them by punching them. You can kill them by kicking them, and you can even do the cool, like you get them in a headlock, and you do the old is that a suplex? Is that what that is?
Well, he
where
does
you
the
throw
knee
them
to
over
the
your
face.
back.
He does the elbow to the face. Is another one he does.
There's a lot of ways to dispatch the bad guys. However, the bad guys are essentially palette swaps of the good guy in this game. Let's not beat around the bush.
Except for the chick.
Yeah,
now
there is
Schneider is coming. Yeah,
there is a female sprite that does bear a certain resemblance to the Twisted Sister frontman. And you do have your good old Abobo. You can't have a Double Dragon game without a Abobo hanging around. But the vast majority of the bad guys that you fight in this game look exactly like you with different hair and different clothing, and that's no good. That's no good at all. Okay,
and the backgrounds and everything just looks, it's very not 16-bitty to me.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, because as if someone said, look at this, this is the MSX port, I'd look at it and be like, hey, that's pretty good, you know. But this is the Amiga, you know what I'm saying? So, and we just got finished playing that awesome Kung Fu revival a couple weeks ago. So we know that they could do better, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so these, I mean, look at the dirt right here in this scene, Boat. Doesn't this remind you of something you said like the NES or like the Master System?
Absolutely.
And so you would, you would expect a little better.
Yeah, and if you look at the port, especially the Master System port, and you compare it with the Amiga version, that it just makes you embarrassed to own this machine because it's so much better. Now, what's the other thing you want when you're playing an arcade style beat 'em up? Well, you want to have good sound design. You want to have a rockin' soundtrack that makes you want to kick butt and take names.
Yeah.
And you also want to have a wide variety of sounds that emanate from your character. You want to hear some grunts. You want to hear some groans. You want to hear, like, for example, like when glass breaks, you want to hear that. You don't get any of that in this game. There are two sound effects. There's the sound effect of you hitting somebody, and there's the sound effect of them puking as they expire. That's it. That's the game. Yeah.
You get a sort of a well, you heard it here, that sort of rendition of the arcade theme, you know, which is sort of a legendary theme in a way, which plays in the arcade version. It plays. You get to hear the theme. In this one, you hear the theme for a little bit, and then I mean, literally, it's like you're walking, and it's definitely quiet everywhere you go. It's very strange. It's actually surreal. You definitely want to put an album on.
What's that movie with The Quiet Place where everything is quiet and like the whole movie? That's sort of like this universe because there is no sound, no footsteps, nothing, just dead silence until you smack a sucker.
What I recommend is you get your playlist of Hall & Oates and Twisted Sister, and you crank it up, and then you play that. That's how you do it. Now, what did you think of the? I mean, in terms of the actual physical fighting in this, when you actually
that's another thing. I didn't have a problem. I thought the collision detection was okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the collision detection in the original game not great either. Okay, newsflash. So I thought that was fine. I thought, like I said, I think your character is animated well.
Well,
the ladder.
I don't think that. He's
I
got,
don't
like,
think it's
watch
that.
him walk.
Again,
look at him walk.
You got to compare this to the arcade version. The arcade version, he doesn't look great either.
It looks way better. They could have done way better in terms of the move. I look at the movement. It's all. I mean, hey, look at
him prance. Look at him prance in the arcade version.
I want prancing. Like, what's the guy doing here? It looks like he's perpetually moonwalking, and whether he goes forward or backward. And and Happy mentioned this in the chat, when he goes up and down the ladder, it's like they may have 1.5 animation frames.
That is pretty. The ladder animation is not great. I'll give you that.
I mean, the thing is, there's not a whole. There's only a few characters in this. You can't do a little. You can't give me a little extra animation in there. I mean, come on, man. You know,
now,
I don't ask for
one
much.
One of the things that I love about all the Double Dragon games is I love it when the enemies can get killed by friendly fire. When they throw a stick of dynamite at you, throw it back at them, and you explode them with that stick of dynamite.
Yeah,
I love that stuff, and all that stuff is present in this game. Except I don't think the dynamite's actually in there. But
right. In fact, I've got a list of the weapons here, and it's got boxes, oil drums, knives, baseball bats, and whips.
Okay, so no dynamite in this one.
Yeah,
but I love the fact that that's in there. Now I'm going to talk about the absolute worst thing about this game.
Oh boy.
This game, you're chugging along 3 or 4 stages. I think the game. How many stages is this game? I think it's at 5 stages.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4.
Okay,
maybe
so
it's
you're
4 or 5. Yeah.
You're trucking along, and you finally get to where the shadow boss's lair is, and you're like, all right, it's time to wreck house. Well, guess what? You're the one that's going to get wrecked because the area of cheapness is what you come upon, and that's where you've got these things that come out of the walls they're sort of like horizontal columns that project out of the walls without warning, and they kill you in one shot. It's a one-shot kill. Yeah. Those are no good. Then if you get past those, you've got to deal with these guys that are holding these spears. They're like statues, and they're just firing the spears downwards randomly, and you've just got to get by them. There's no way to beat them, and there's no way to predict their patterns. You start out in Double Dragon on the Amiga. You start out, I think, with 4 credits. Each credit gives you 3 lives. I expended probably 90% of my lives and my credits just on those 2 things, the column thing and the spear thing. Then I destroyed the final boss without any problem.
Yeah, all the bosses in this are geeks. We should mention that. You can run right through them. I didn't have any trouble. In fact, the only time you get in trouble is when you get swarmed by guys. Otherwise, you can. I mean, the funny thing is, though, and this is like the arcade too. Like, it takes forever to beat some of these guys. They just sit there and pound on them. And they'll get up and just keep pounding on them. And eventually, they just stop getting up. They make the puke noise. The end part is, I remember when me and you played this out back in the day in the arcade. We went through and played all of these on stream one time. And each one of them had some kind of garbage just like that. It's the take your money portion of the game where they screw you. Except this is the home version, brother. We don't need that kind of crap. Just having random columns of crap. I hate that. I hate it. That's got no place in the game that's a beat 'em up. You know, I hated it. I will say there's an area in this arcade game and on the Amiga version where you have to jump across the bridge. Remember that? Where the bridge is out? I found the arcade version much harder to jump across than the Amiga version.
Me too.
I bebopped right across in the Amiga version. The arcade, I got killed there like tons of times back in the day. I remembered how much I hated that. So, yeah, that's no good. I agree with everything you say, and I think we're pretty much in lockstep. And this is one game. Listen, me and Bo didn't have a cup of coffee with this thing. We've played this thing multiple times, Bo, together and separate. We've both played this at the same time and played it by ourselves. And if you're looking for a mostly solid 8-bit version of Double Dragon, you could do not too much better than the Amiga. You maybe do a little bit better on the Master
No, you
System.
could do much, much better. The NES game blows this away because it adds RPG elements to it. Like, you actually level up your character in the NES version.
Isn't there one of these versions that doesn't have the 2-player, though? Which one?
Yeah, well, yeah, the NES doesn't have 2-player mode. So if you're looking for that, look elsewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Double Dragon. If you don't have 2-player mode.
If you're playing by yourself, you want to go with either the NES or the Master System version. And they're much better. They're much better.
I don't think they put a lot of time into this. And if they did, in fact, bring this over from the
Amstrad, that's not a good look. Yeah.
No, well, it's also just weak. That's a weak effort, Boat, in my opinion. I looked to see what kind of review action I got before we get into the Discord stuff. It's funny. This isn't a popular game. I think me and you, despite us killing it, like it more than almost everyone.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Lemon gives us a 4.93. The One gave it 3 out of 5. So maybe not. Ace gave this 298 out of 1,000. So that's pretty low. Power Play, 41 out of 100. Games Preview, 44 out of 100. And Joystick out of Germany, a 8 out of 10.
You know, the kiss of death for all of these European computer titles are if you can beat them too easily. You know, nothing, you never got marked down. And this is a game that you can rip through on the first go. So even if this game looked and played perfectly, I feel like it would have gotten poor reviews just on the basis of that.
I agree. We did get some good Discord action here, Bo, if you'll indulge me.
Yeah, man.
Pajako 6502 writes, "Double dragged down."
Oh,
it's right out of the gate. It's a burn. It's the holiday season, circa 1989, and I'm at a market looking for a game to spend my birthday/Christmas money on. Seeing Double Dragon and being a fan of the arcade game, I spent £29 and took it home, loaded it up. I tried to pretend it was good. I knew deep down it sucked poop through a sweaty gym sock.
Ew.
The only music is a lazy digitized sample at the start menu. The rest of the game is virtually silent, bar the same hit sound, and enemies sound like they are puking when they die. This is unbelievably similar to what you said. The sprite collision is terrible. The animation is subpar. The character sprites look like something a 7-year-old drew. The whole thing reeks of an 8-bit game lazily ported to a 16-bit system. Some of the background graphics are nice for an OCS game, though. Looking at the sequel in the Amiga, it clearly shows that something much closer to the arcade was possible, so there really was no excuse. To this day, the thought of spending money on that turkey makes me sad. It hasn't aged well on top of that. 3 out of 10. Beatdown. Our good buddy Mitsuyama chimes in. From the moment you hear the poorly sampled opening music, this game screams lazy port. They couldn't even be bothered to include the opening scene that shows Billy's girlfriend being kidnapped. I doubt that would have gotten past the censors over there. It's my guess. The game looks okay, and the screenshots in the back of the box or in the magazines may have even persuaded some people to buy it. But the gameplay is very poor. The collision detection seems off. There is no in-game music, and the sound effects are very sparse. What makes things worse is the game is too easy. I was able to complete it on my first go with 2 or 3 credits to spare. It may be more fun in 2-player mode, but considering the way the game slows down when there are more than 3 characters on the screen, I doubt it. There are better Double Dragon ports on other systems, and there are better beat-em-ups on the Amiga. Avoid this 1 out of 10.
Oh,
that's the dirt worst.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Soup chimes in. You know how Lord Soup does it.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I have to defend the developer, as he was given next to no time, no staff, and no budget to port a game that the Amiga probably could have given a good run at. It's still really bad, so don't bother. The Mega Drive/Genesis version is great, and emulated PC versions are available from such places as Good Old Games. An arcade classic, an Amiga dookie. Double Dragon, Dumpy Deuce. 2 out of 10.
It's like a quad D.
Man, so the listeners were not kind to this one, Boat. You know, I will say, if you can't get this on eBay, they must have sold a ton of these. Right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I didn't see as many as I thought I would, but I did see a lot of them not selling. So right now in the USA, you could get one for $30, not counting shipping. And I didn't see these sell at $18 or $20. So 30 is probably a little high. So I'm guessing if you waited around for a while, you could probably get this for $15, $20. And I saw, it's funny, I did see many Double Dragon 2s, but not nearly as many Double Dragon 1s. If that means anything to anybody. Any parting thoughts on this one, Boat?
Listen, it's tough for me to bury this game like our reviewers did, because we've played so many worse games. But do yourself a favor, give this one a miss, go right to Double Dragon 2.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I didn't think the hit detection was that bad. And I will say, if you ever wanted to see your favorite musical duo go to battle, this is the game for you. Otherwise, you can move right along.
Are you a sketchy tech? Do you have the right tools for the job? Have there been incidents? Next time, don't try to fix it yourself. Send your broken Amiga to Retro Rewind. Get a full diagnostic, a reasonable estimate, and the peace of mind knowing that your machine is in the hands of real technicians with decades of experience and cutting-edge repair equipment. Save 10% off your repair with the promo code Amigos10. Thank you to RetroRewind.ca for supporting this episode.
All right, Aaron. So, it's the summer time, Aaron. It's the summer of arcade here in Amigos land.
Yeah.
We got no news to speak of because it's a slow news part of the cycle here in the summer. It's a lazy summer day here in July.
Yeah. How was your vacation, Boat? I bet it was awesome.
Oh my gosh. The only thing that could beat it was Boat Fest. Boat Fest was out of this world amazing.
Yeah. I had to leave the little moniker up there just to remind me how great it was, Boat.
Yeah. But we are going to we're going to be back next week with another arcade explosion. But before we go, we want to thank our Patreon community, patreon.com/Amigos podcast. Special shout out to Oram, who just became our latest Amigos Game Selection Committee member. Thank you, Oram. We also want to remind you that when it's not July, we record these shows live at twitch.tv/Amigos podcast. Or no, Amigos Retro Gaming. There we go. I know I'd get it right. And Aaron, it's time to announce next week's Game of the Week. What is it?
Are you excited?
I'm super excited.
Let's see what it is. Oh, Boat. It's my favorite game, Parasol Stars. I love this one. I'm a big fan, and I love the box art. It's a beauty, Boat. It should be a lot of fun.
You know how you were talking about games that wouldn't get over here in the United States based on their cute level?
Yeah.
We were talking about Twin Bee. Well, this is another one of these games, Aaron. If you release that and teenage Aaron was looking at boxes on the shelf, would that big, happy, big-eyed freak want to make you take it home?
He looks like the guy that works for Shoney's. Remember when the Shoney's kid And to get this guy over in the States, you got to put an automatic weapon in his hand.
That's right.
Or
And
something.
give him
bottle of
some
booze.
angry eyebrows.
Now, Bo, is this the game? This had a release on the TurboGrafx, right? This is
It
the
did.
home
This
release,
is one
yeah.
of these games. It actually, even though this is the Amigos Summer of Arcade, this was not an arcade game. It only got released on the Amiga and the TurboGrafx 16, but it counts. It counts.
Close enough, Boat.
All right, guys. Thank you as always for watching. We'll see you next time, and until then, adios.
Adios.